Welcome to Caring Beyond the Pew. Today we're going to talk about self-care for pastors, lay leaders, and end-of-life ministry. Pastors care for others, but who cares for the pastors? In today's episode, we're having a heart-to-heart about self-care for pastors, chaplains, and lay leaders. Those who serve on the sacred front lines of end-of-life ministry. Whether you're holding a grieving widow's hand or walking with the family through their darkest hour, your work is holy, but it's also heavy. And if you're not careful, that weight can break you. So let's talk about how to guard your soul while serving others. We have 3 segments we're going to talk about. And the first one is preventing burnout in end-of-life ministry. So, let's start by naming the elephant in the room. Burnout. It's real and it's rampant among ministry leaders, especially those that are involved in grief, loss, and end-of-life care. The constant exposure to trauma, sorrow, and crisis, it can take a toll on your mind, your heart, and your body. But burnout doesn't always have to scream. Sometimes it whispers. It shows up as fatigue, as cynicism, or the quiet sense that your prayers are running dry. Let me ask you, have you noticed yourself becoming numb to the pain of others? Do you find it harder to focus during prayer or feel present during visits? These may be signs that your soul is asking for rest. So here's some tips. Schedule regular rest and Sabbath time without guilt. Let me give you 3 examples on that. Every Monday, Pastor Lisa, she turns off her phone. She puts away messages on her email, and she spends the morning walking in a nature trail and journaling. She protects that time as her personal Sabbath, even if there was a funeral the day before. Then example 2, Deacon James. He schedules one Sunday off every quarter where he's not preaching, he's not leading communion, he's not attending any meetings. He uses the day to worship at another church or rest at home in prayer and quiet. And then finally, example number 3, Minister Clara. She builds a weekly rhythm of rest by protecting Friday evenings for dinner with her family and Saturday mornings for her stillness. No calls, no church work, no guilt. So, what day or time of a week could you designate as your sacred rest? How can you begin to protect it starting this month? Take some mental health breaks after particularly difficult cases. An example of that would be after officiating a tragic funeral for a teenager, Pastor Mark, he blocks off 2 days to decompress. He sees his therapist, he goes for a long drive, and he allows himself to grieve without rushing back into ministry tasks. Then we have Sister Andrea. She keeps a pause plan, a simple list of what she'll do after hard calls, including take a walk, doing breath work, and texting her accountability partner to check in with her. And then there's Chaplain Kevin. He uses a PTO day after a particularly emotional week at the hospital. He communicates ahead of time with leadership and plans his coverage so he can fully step away and recharge. So what are your signs that it's time to pause for your mental health? What's your personal pause plan when ministry gets heavy? So set emotional boundaries. It's okay to care deeply without carrying everything alone. Remember this. Think about it. Pastor Angela, she listens with compassion to grieving families, but she reminds herself, I'm not their savior. I'm their shepherd. She prays for them, then releases the outcome to God. Think about that. And then you have Minister Tyrone. He keeps a small stone in his pocket, pulls it out, and when he leaves a difficult visit, he physically holds it and he prays. And he imagines handing the burden over to God as a reminder that he doesn't have to carry it all. And then our last example is our lay leader, Maria. She uses this phrase to guide her boundaries. I can sit with you in the dark, but I can't fix your pain. It helps her stay present, but not overwhelmed by others' grief. So, reflect on this. What truth helps you draw emotional boundaries in ministry? Do you have a symbol or phrase that grounds you in God's sufficiency? Think about that. Reflect on that. So let's look at balancing personal grief while ministering to others. One of the most difficult challenges in ministry is this. What do you do when you are grieving too? Maybe you just lost a parent, or you're walking through your own valley, and yet the phone keeps ringing. The hospital visits don't stop. The funerals don't pause. How do we hold space for ourselves while honoring our own pain? How do we hold space for others while honoring our own pain? Well, let's look at Luke 5:16. It tells us that Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed. Even Jesus, the Son of God, needed time away from the crowds to commune with the Father. If our Savior practiced solitude, how much more do we need that time to process, to grieve, and to heal? This is one of the most sacred tensions in ministry. We're called to hold space for others, to listen deeply, to comfort, to shepherd through our own grief. But what happens when we're grieving too? But when we've just buried a loved one, or our hearts are heavy with personal loss, how do we show up for others without neglecting ourselves? Well, you have to acknowledge your own humanity. Being in ministry doesn't mean being immune to sorrow. Jesus wept. Paul mourned. The Psalms are full of godly leaders who brought their pain to God while still leading. So the first step is to give permission. Give yourself permission not to be okay, even while serving others. Take a moment. When was the last time you were grieving and still had to minister? How did you show up? What did you need that you didn't receive? Now, think about this too. Name and tend to your own grief. Ministry doesn't mean neglecting your needs. If you're walking through your own loss, make space for it. Journal your emotions. Talk to a counselor. Share honestly with a trusted friend or a mentor. Your pain matters too. So here are 3 examples on how you can do this. Pastor Alicia, she was planning a funeral for a beloved church member while mourning the recent death of her aunt. Before she visited the grieving family, she sat in her office and she said a prayer for her own heart first. She cried, she breathed, and then she entered into their pain with integrity and authenticity. Now you have to lean into your trusted community. Don't isolate. You need spaces where you don't have to be the strong one. Join a clergy support group. Confide in a fellow leader or schedule a session with a pastor counselor. You cannot pour from an empty cup, and you don't have to. Model healthy grief for others. Sometimes the best ministry we offer is showing people how to grieve well. If appropriate, let them see your tears. Tell them, I'm walking through loss too, and I know God meets us here. Vulnerability can be holy. You're not just teaching them how to die well, you're modeling how to live well through grief. Where in your life are you grieving right now? How might God be inviting you to care for your own soul, even as you care for others? I want you to take this week to take one step to honor your pain. Write a prayer, take a retreat day, or talk to someone you trust. Holding space for others doesn't mean abandoning your own heart. And our last topic we want to talk about is debriefing and peer support for pastors. So let's talk about something we don't talk about enough: peer support. So many pastors and lay leaders, they're isolated. They carry others' burdens, but barely let themselves be carried. Ministry was never meant to be done alone. Why does peer support matter? Confidential conversations, it allows safe debriefing after hard cases. Shared experiences help normalize emotions like frustration, guilt, or helplessness. Peer networks can provide practical advice and spiritual refreshment. Here are some ideas to implement that. Form or join a local clergy support circle or spiritual direction group. Set monthly check-in calls with a fellow ministry leader. Debrief hard moments, not just in prayer, but with people who get it. Who is your safe person? Who do you turn to after a hard day in ministry? If no one comes to mind, today might be the day to start building that lifeline. Before we close, I want to leave you with this. Who supports you in your pastoral work? Today, I encourage you to reach out to a fellow leader, text a mentor, call a friend, invite someone for coffee, not to pour out, but to simply connect. We're not meant to pour out from an empty cup. And my final thought to you is, self-care is not selfish, it's stewardship. As you care for the dying, grieving, and suffering, remember, your wellness matters too. Your soul matters to God. Rest, pray, connect, and come back to this sacred work that God has given you. Come back refreshed. Thank you for joining us today on Caring Beyond the Pew. If this episode encouraged you, please share it with a fellow leader. Don't forget to subscribe so that you never miss a moment of encouragement. And as always, serve well, rest well, and remember this: you are not alone in your journey. Together, we all can make a difference.